Doing something different today. Today I'm fishing with a nice waggler on a little, on a little small river, catching roach and perch. Roll the intro. So here we are on a small little river. It's quite nice. With the dog walkers and the cyclists and the people coming behind us. So it's nice and relaxed. And I'm trotting a waggler down. I'm not fishing that deep. I'm fishing, I wouldn't even be fishing 3 feet deep. I'm fishing with my 15-foot Drennan Acolyte rod. I'm doing dueling rods because I'm sharing a peg with Steve. And we're catching roach and perch. The most simple, easy tactics in the world. A little float and some maggots. Nice and easy. There's something nice about fishing with floats. I've made a mix of Sensus, Gros Gardons and some black crumb just to ball in. I have maggot, castor, worm. I have dead maggot with me. And I have corn and hemp. And all I'm doing every now and then is chucking a ball of ground bait in. I'm fishing up the river. Steve is fishing down the river. So we're kind of meeting in the middle. Steve's catching more fish, but he's also catching the interests of the pike, so we'll let him keep hold of the pike. And I'll worry about trying to catch some decent roach. 4AA Waggler. And I'm not impressed with the line that I've spooled up on this reel because I bought new line for the reel. It's meant to be £6 monofilament that's meant to be for float fishing. I'm unimpressed, so I'm going to have to go and replace the line. It was like a Berkeley something. Meant to be £6, but the knots are snapping in my hand, so it's not staying on the spool any longer. It will be going rather quickly when I get home. The river's nice. It's a nice, easy pull through. You could fish a stick float here. It's just about slower for the stick float than that daily you'd want. And I'm using the waggler. With the waggler float, if you're fishing somewhere that's a bit pacey on a waggler float, you tend to have your weight kind of down towards the bottom, so you're carrying your bait to the bottom. But because it's not that deep here, and it's not going that fast, I'm keeping the weight high up, closer to the float. That means you have a bit more, you can punch out your float. You better get that in, Steve, because there's a pike behind that, mate. You can punch your float out, your float will carry your weight and everything. Now, it's as easy as you can get. I mean, float fishing is beautiful and it's simple. I'm just chucking it to the far margins. The river's coming in. We're on a bend, so it hits our bend and then it speeds up. It's actually kind of weird. You'd expect it to be speeding up dead under our feet, but it's weird. It doesn't speed up under our feet. It goes kind of hits the bank here and then goes to the far margin. So there's slack water to my left. There's a big dead tree in it, and I've been catching some roach and perch from the dead tree. there's a tree overhanging on the far side. I'm just going to show you guys. There's a tree. I don't even know if you'll see the float, but there's like trees overhanging on the far margins. Then there's like a clear spot that's directly in front of me. You're bound to be able to see the clear spot. And then as you go down the river, it just goes down like that there. But I'm fishing so the bait is on the bottom. Steve's fishing a lot more shallower than me, but I'm kind of dragging my bait just so it's off the bottom, so a little bit over depth. I'm catching some nice roach and some teeny tiny perch, but that's the way. It's not very often I get to do this type of fishing, so when I get the opportunity to go and do this float fishing, I'll quite happily take it. Also, the more observant among you will notice that I'm wearing a new hat. Yes, modelling a brand new Drennan hat. This feels a bit better. No. That's the size of roach we're getting. If I can catch these all day, I'll be a happy guy.
Just then.
Whoops. I stuck a float in the tree, and then pulling it out, I managed to, well, I've lost the float. Shit happens. This will be the third time between tangling and casting into the trees that I have lost floats and had to kind of start again. But it isn't so bad, we're still catching fish. I don't think I'm going to be fishing for a long time though, but this is the sort of stamp of fish we're catching. Pretty good fun. The pike angler in me is going, those are perfect for something else fish. Those are just the sort of size I'd be looking for something else fish. But I'm not the only one that's had a bit of a bad day with the float rod. Steve's now on the whip because he had enough of the float rod. This is after he came down yesterday and busted an eye out of one of the rods. Not even sure if you guys will be able to see where I'm fishing. Don't even know if you guys will be able to see the yellow float tip out there. But that's where we're fishing, that far margin. Between where the trees are coming in and those reeds. I've put a few balls of ground bait in. Usually chucking about a ball of the size of about a golf ball. Well, sometimes it's a bit bigger than a golf ball. Not fishing very deep. I'm having to guess to when to put the thumb on it and stop the float going into the trees. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There was one of the videos I like, one of the guys I like watching on YouTube called Angry Cops. He's like a US military, US Army drill sergeant who now does, he's like a policeman, but the American military is kind of strange. You know, and I honestly thought that the NHS was terrible. But there was a story that came out where a Canadian soldier or a Canadian veteran had phoned up the Canadian Veterans line to get some help because he was struggling, and the person on the other end thought, "Have you thought about euthanasia?" and was talking about trying to encourage the Armed Forces veteran to end his own life, so to speak. And the Canadian veteran went, "No, I'm not really interested in that. I just want some help." And the person on the other end of the phone came out with the quote, "I have helped other veterans do this." And he was like, "Fuck it, what?" And he goes, "It's okay, because I arranged counselling for their children." So, I mean, anytime I worked with the Canadians, they were a sound bunch of guys, they were good people. But now they're getting told, you know, just go and do the forever sleep, because you're a fucking drain on the taxpayer or some shit. I kind of thought that was fucking disgusting myself. And then it kind of dawned on me that, fuck, I hope the NHS doesn't go the same way. Because the way they're going, they'd likely fucking bring out incentivised bonuses to see if you can get, like, every 10th veteran you get to fucking delete themselves. You get like a free fucking day at the spa or some shit like that. You know, I don't fucking understand that. Balls in the bushes. Trying to stay out of the bushes. But imagine telling a veteran who's got kids, delete yourself and we'll sort out the counselling for your kids. Like, that's a pretty fucking scummy thing to say to somebody. I would say to people, like, you know, like the whole euthanasia thing, if somebody's on their way out with like a terminal illness like cancer or something like that there, and instead of fucking going through that long drawn out process, then okay, maybe there's an argument there, or somebody has that locked in syndrome or that Lou Gehrig's disease. You know, okay, maybe. But delete yourself to save some fucking taxpayers' money, excuse me? I think I would be wanting to have a word with the call centre human, and they would be doing the dance of the flaming arseholes. Oh, they would be doing the dance of the flaming arseholes, alright. like and subscribe. Do as you're told. Oop, shit. Like and subscribe. Oh, fuck.
1 hour later.
Small river waggler fishing. I think that's what we're going to call this video. That's one small bit of advice there. If you're fishing with a 15-foot magic now, all the tangle. If you're fishing with a 15-foot rod, make sure that the line isn't wrapped around the top eye, because you'll snap off the rod, which is a bollocks, which is a real pain in the ass. This rod, this is the Drennan Acolyte, the 15-foot rod. I've broke the tip on this rod and had to send it back to Drennan. Now, I wasn't playing anything big. I certainly wasn't throwing a big float. It was a 4BB, little stick float. And the tip of and I was playing roach that are probably about the same size as today. And the thing snapped, but it snapped at the spigot in the third section. So it's kind of weird that it snapped at such a weird place. So Drennan sent me a replacement tip, which is kind of strange that they have replacement tips for 15-foot rods on stock. And then from speaking to other guys who have bought the same rod when it first came out, they all had similar issues with it breaking at the spigot. Now I'd see the point if I was swinging in like half-pound bream and stuff like that and skimmers, but I wasn't swinging anything in that was massive or anything like that. And the touching wood, this tip has been pretty good, lasted. But all that being said, if it broke again, I'd probably look to buy a different. This is basically my stick float rod. Normally, if I was just fishing with a Waggler rod, you could get away with a 12-foot Waggler rod. 13 foot's nice. You don't need a 15-foot rod to do this type of fishing. The only reason I have a 15-foot rod for stick float fishing is to correct the line on the drift. You know, because it is pretty good to correct the line, although not this mono, because this mono is shit. This mono is getting ripped off the spool when I go home and bend. I go to tie a knot in it and the mono goes to shit. Berkeley. Was it Berkeley? I can't remember the make of the line, but it was recommended. It was like for float fishing. It was like, okay, it's in 6 pound strength. It's a bit crap. So we will be changing it. I don't like it if I'm snapping the knots and I'm tying knots. I don't like it. Don't like it. It's gone kind of quiet, but I kind of expect it to go quiet because Steve emptied a keep net of about 20 pounds of roach back into the river. So that's killed the swim a little bit. I'm not going to fish for very long after this. I'll probably fish for another hour, if that. And then go and do some stuff at home. The water level is very low. Normally this place, you'd expect it to be, you know, at least another foot higher, foot 18 inches higher. There's some trees on my left hand side. Normally you just about see the tips of them. There's quite a lot of them sticking out. So that tells you how low the water is. There's also a little pike that lives in the bushes down just below me to my right. Steve was having some fun with the pike. But it's been alright. I enjoyed myself. I'm having a good time. I'm going to show you where at this other side of the river. You can see where the trees are coming in. Then there's a little cut back from behind the trees where it goes to reeds. That's where the fish have been coming from, that little cut back. I cast a bit too far out. This is more in the flow. You can see how much of a flow there is. There isn't a lot of flow, but there is flow coming down. So you'll be able to see the waggler kind of moving down. I don't even know if this camera's picking up the damn waggler. But you don't have to be. You don't have to be Bob Nudd to fish like this. This is just nice and easy, simple fishing. This kind of takes me back to kind of the first sort of course fishing I did. It was fishing with, again, stick floats and stuff, wagglers. Fishing on a little part of the river outside of where I lived in Oma that held roach. Much to the salmon anglers' dismay, there was roach in this part of the river. The salmon men at the time, well even to this day, they weren't so happy that there was coarse fish in the river. The guys that fish for the trout and the salmon tend to only want trout and salmon in the river. That's still a pretty predominant attitude, even to this day. But hey, what are you gonna do? In the distance, somebody's dog is having a good old bark. Yep. Catch its breath and start again. Tranquil, peaceful, until you have dogs barking. Or people walking their dogs and letting them shite everywhere. Or people walking right up to you and asking you what you're fishing for. Need to get signs. Do not disturb. There's a couple of kingfishers and they're nipping up and down the river and it's beautiful to see. But they are like lightning. There was one that sat in a tree branch just directly in front of me. and the bleeping of the GoPro to try and catch the thing. It must have spooked it because it fucking bolted off that way. Beautiful little birds. Fuck.
More moments later.
I'm thinking it could possibly be time to call it a day. You are witnessing the one last cast for the day. One last cast. Let's see if we get one last fish. I'm gonna use the sweet corn and the hemp that I have sitting that I've been out as bait today. They're not going to get taken home with me. It's going to get put in here so that the fish get a free feed. Little bits of the ground bit that I mixed up, that's just going to get chucked in as well. I don't really take it home and freeze it. I get asked that question, you know, do you ever freeze your ground bait? Well, I tend to mix up enough that will do me for a day. And if I need to mix up more, I've got spare stuff sitting that I can mix up more. But most of the time, no, I would mix what I need for the day, and that would pretty much do me. And at the end of the day, if you have a little bit left, it goes into the river. The fish get another free feed. It isn't necessarily that bad a thing, if you know what I mean. Oh, that was a bite. Here we go, the last fish of the day. They really are fin perfect little roach. Slimy buggers, but fin perfect. So, let's get this stuff on let's get the fishing stuff on the trolley, get the bait that's left over in the river, and then I'll pull out the keep net and let you see what I have. Feed. It isn't necessarily that bad a thing, if you know what I mean. Oh, that was a bite. Here we go, the last fish of the day. really are fin perfect little roach. Slimy buggers, but fin perfect. So let's get this stuff on the, let's get the fishing stuff on the trolley, get the bait that's left over in the river, and then I'll pull out the keep net and let you see what I have. So let's see what we have. That's not right amount, I think. I ain't gonna win no matches, but it's still an alright amount. Not a bad catch of little roach. I'll take a picture of them dead quick. Camera. Can't forget this. Don't leave litter, folks. So, there we go. Another day fishing. Catching small fish. It's the start of September. Well, it will be when you see this. It's the last kind of weekend in October. So, September is usually a good month for the fishing and the earn. It also means that we're 1 month closer to the pike, so that's that to look forward to. Anyway, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's doing the whole YouTube thing to keep our algorithm thing up on the good things. However, because I swear too much, none of these videos get, very few of them get monetized. YouTube doesn't like it when you say hurty wordies. It offends the weak human beings. YouTube and kissing my ass could be the suggestion, but I'm going to refrain from saying any more before Susan Wojcicki, who's in charge of YouTube, fucking bans me or does something to me. Anyway, thank you to everyone who's liking, sharing, subscribing to the channel. You guys are awesome. If you want to buy me a beer, there's a link in the description, but I ain't wanting it, I ain't encouraging it. In fact, I'm actually saying to you, you do not have to do that. It's not like it's compulsory that you have to fucking buy me a pint out of the Ko-Fi thing. You don't have to do it. There are some crazy people who do it, and to those guys I'm very grateful, but it ain't a mandatory thing. I'm happy that you're just watching the videos and giving me earache on the comments. There's a pike just over under the bushes that's just smashed a little roach. But I've also got a new one of these coming. This is a Preston Innovations one, and it's latex lined. But as you can see, those little white bits, that's where the latex is cracked and failed. So hooks can get in there. I've got somebody who's a rep for a company called New Fish, and he's going to send me a couple of landing net heads just to try out. I've known the guy for years, so it's not like I'm like reaching out and saying, hello new fish, please do me a solid and sponsor me because I am a sexual tyrannosaurus. No, so hopefully I'll get them pretty soon. They're waiting to come into stock. But it's like anything, it's a latex landing net. The latex landing nets don't last forever. Eventually the latex cracks and then it's just as good as a normal landing net. The way the latex works is the hooks can't really penetrate it that well, so you don't end up getting hooks in your mesh and spend time getting hooks into the mesh. But on that happy shiny note, thanks for watching, have a good time, and if yous are out fishing, tight lines.